Israeli internal politics, domestic politics, once again in focus. Last week we were talking about the developments with Shin Bet and the dismissal of the intelligence security chief there. Now the Netanyahu government has set their eyes on the Attorney General. What's the latest?
Indeed, this was hardly a surprise. This lady was a holdover from the previous, more centrist government, and the current government, more right-leaning, leaning toward religious Jewish parties, had long complained, members had long complained about her interference, they said, her placing legal obstacles before various moves, various policy moves. It was really just a matter of time, and now it would appear that the Prime Minister, Netanyahu, is confident enough with the course of the Gaza war, that that's far from over, to begin implementing her ouster. As far as critics of the Prime Minister are concerned, this is yet another attempt by the government to remove a guardrail for the healthy democratic functions of a government that would lack potentially guardrails otherwise. So the closer we get to the final ouster, this isn't finalized yet, we'll probably see more protests. The question is whether protesters' opponents can mount the sort of public disruption that might make the government change course. They haven't managed so far. But what has happened now is effectively, after a year and a half of war in Gaza, this move by the government, following on the move last week to fire the head of the Shin Bet security service, has returned to the public discourse in Israel the question of judicial oversight, of balance between branches of government, and that has now eclipsed the question, or threatens to eclipse the question, of how to conduct the still ongoing Gaza war.
And of course, the international community is still very much focused on the Gaza war, the state of the ceasefire, renewed offensive in the Gaza Strip. There's been the worst exchange of fire in Lebanon since that ceasefire came into effect. What is the status of all of these ceasefires, Dan? Are they going to hold? And I mean, in the case of Gaza, we spoke about it last week, it actually is effectively no longer standing.
Well, all the regional ceasefires basically stem from the ceasefire in Gaza. That ceasefire expired on March 2nd. It was only a matter of time before fighting resumed, and it did resume 6 days ago with a surprise series of Israeli airstrikes that have now been built upon with limited ground movements by Israeli troops and tanks in the Gaza Strip. There appears to be some unraveling elsewhere. There are daily launches of Houthi missiles at Israel, so far with no damage within Israel, but some disruption in terms of sirens in major population centers like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. There has been friction along the Lebanon border, though that ceasefire appears to be keeping intact. What's happening in Gaza is the Israelis appear to be focusing, among other things, on the civilian government of Hamas. Keep in mind that Israel's objective is to destroy Hamas completely and to prevent it using a ceasefire or a lull in fighting to rebuild its capabilities. So yesterday, 2 members of the Hamas Politburo in Gaza killed in Israeli airstrikes, bringing to 11 the number out of 20 total members of that forum who've been killed, effectively halving the civilian Hamas administration of the Gaza Strip during this war. It would appear the Israelis have a very specific focus, and they're trying to apply tactics in this resumption of the offensive that weren't applied earlier.